Everyone gets rejected, more or less, and it comes in all forms, being ignored, getting a no, being ghosted, which I have a little personal story about that I will share with you later. There's rejection with an explanation, there's rejection with no explanation at all. We might experience it from a friend or a partner or an employer or even a stranger. And sometimes it stings for just a brief moment and then we forget all about it. And sometimes it can stay with us for years, perhaps forever even. Today I want to talk about rejection, and I'm going to do something that I don't usually do, which is to share a few personal stories, because I think hearing about other people's experiences can be comforting and encouraging. And there's also something in it for me. I get to be vulnerable and in a way make light of it, because ultimately, at the end of the day, it really is not the end of the world. Rejection is simply a part of any process that entails going from wanting something to getting it, because it's rarely, if ever, a straight line, which means that you will probably fall off a few times. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't get back up and keep walking. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not immune to the pain that rejection can bring by any means, but I never want to lead a life where I let fear of rejection lead to a lack of initiative. And as someone close to me always says, to dare is a gain in itself. All right, let's get into these rejection stories. And I figured I would start out light just to warm myself up, and then we will gradually get to the more painful stuff. So, what I recall as my first sense of feeling personally rejected is from when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I would send emails to what I believed was various cast members of Harry Potter, declaring my love and asking if there was any way that we could meet. I might have also expressed my interest in acting and asked if there was any way that I could be in the upcoming films. And I remember this so vividly for some reason. I would find these email addresses online that allegedly belonged to, let's say, Emma Watson, and I would also make up email addresses that I figured, had to belong to her. So for instance, I would write emmawatson@hotmail.com or emma.watson@hotmail.com, and so on. 18 or so years later, I still never got a response. I have no idea who those emails actually went to. And by the way, I just want to disclaim that the only reason this is somewhat funny and cute is because I was 8 years old and it was very harmless. There's nothing funny or cute about bombarding anyone with emails. Now, while I no longer send emails to Harry Potter cast members, reaching out to various people is something that I still do, and something that I want to do much more of, because it has led to some pretty interesting conversations with people and some pretty cool opportunities. But of course, there are still instances where, the person shows no interest in what I have to say. But as Nora Roberts said or wrote, this is a pretty common saying: if you don't ask, the answer is always no. Now, when it comes to reaching out to someone, whether that is emailing or sending a message on Instagram or wherever, I personally don't really think much of it anymore. Most of the time I will just, write, press send, and then kind of forget about it. But if there's a situation where I get filled with anticipation for whatever reason, only to get rejected, I think of it as it's not a loss, it's just not a gain. And I might even take it a step further and think, in a few ways it is a gain. I'm bettering my email writing skills, I'm becoming more comfortable with stepping out of my comfort zone, and I'm growing a tiny bit more resilient, and so forth. Moving on to the second story. When I think of rejection, a time that stands out to me is school. Now, school is a big chunk of a person's life. It's like 13 years, and all 13 of those was not bad by any means. I had some good times and some good friends, but I also had some pretty bad times where people would be mean to me and alienate me, to put it lightly. And I still have my journal entries from that time where I express a lot of sadness and even anger too. You know, I could definitely make a long video about this topic alone and the things that I learned, but I would like to share two things. So for starters, and this is not to say that your school years don't matter or that you should just suck it up, but I wish that I had understood at the time that the world is much bigger than your school and the people in it. Who you are in school and how many friends you have or how popular you are really will not matter when you enter the real world, or not even when you enter university. Now, I'm not saying that it will not affect you or that it'll not matter to you, because, you know, having a bad school experience can definitely take a toll on your mental health, and you might need to work through that, perhaps with a therapist, but it won't matter to anyone else. And now the second thing isn't exactly a lesson, but rather a way in which I think that that period in my life shaped me, which is that I became someone who always looked for, you know, the new person or the lonely person and trying to make them feel comfortable and trying to include them. And I'm still that kind of person. And sometimes I might have come across as a bit intrusive, but I would rather risk being perceived as a bit intrusive if that means that I could possibly be the person that I wish someone had been to me. Okay, so we have reached story number 3 on this list, which is about the time when I essentially got ghosted by someone that I had been seeing for a few months. And it was really painful, actually. He eventually reached out to me again, but obviously at that time the door was already closed. So this is also one of those things that taught me a lot, but I think one of the central lessons was that there are some things that we will never understand, and the better that we can get at making peace with that, the less we will suffer. You know, you may never fully understand why someone didn't respond to you, or why you didn't get the job, or why someone left you, or why your friend doesn't seem to like you. As much as we wish that each rejection came with a nice glittery letter and a bow explaining why, that's just not how things work. It actually felt pretty good sharing those things for some reason. Now, overall, when it comes to rejection, I just try not to think in extremes. You know, I don't think I suck and I'm worthless and send myself down a spiral, but I also don't think I'm the greatest of all time and they just cannot see it, because that leaves no space for self-reflection and improvement. I have found that one of the key factors in finding a healthy balance is honesty. So while I try not to dwell and make things worse for myself, I also don't just brush it off like it's nothing. You know, I don't try to minimize what's happened or what I'm feeling. So if something hurt like hell, you know, it's okay to feel that. Just like it's okay to recognize when something actually didn't hurt the way that you had expected that would hurt. So whatever is true, just let yourself feel it and take it from there. And now let's take a moment to thank our sponsor today, which is Skillshare. Now, I don't know about you, but I personally find it heavier to carry the weight of rejection when I feel like I did not do my best. You know, whether that is sending an email that was poorly formatted or half-assing a video when I knew that I could have done a lot better. Not everything is in our control, but we can always work on bettering our craft. So for instance, I want to become better at expressing myself creatively, both in writing, in speech, filming, editing, and just overall style. So there's a class on Skillshare that I am taking called Find Your Style, 5 Exercises to Unlock Your Creative Identity by Andy J. Pizza. And I found the class not only to be helpful, but also really fun to watch because of the way that he edits and the way that he speaks. It's just really captivating. As most of you know, Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes on a variety of things. So I've been taking classes on there for over a year now, and I've really been enjoying it. Whether you want to take a class on writing or coding or creativity, you will likely find it there. Now, if you would like to try Skillshare yourself, I have a special offer. The first 1,000 people to use the link in my description box will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership, and after that, it's only around $10 a month. All right, that was a fun time. You know, I've noticed that people often prefer to share their stories of rejection only if that story leads to some sort of success. So, for example, I got rejected by 15 book publishers before one book publisher said yes, or something like that. You know, otherwise we just see it as a story of how we failed, and why would we want to share that? But I think that sharing and talking about these experiences, regardless of the aftermath of rejection, can be valuable. So I hope that this conversation inspired you to open up about some of your rejection stories, and perhaps you would like to share those in the comment section. All right, thank you so much for showing up here today, and I cannot wait to chat with you in the comments as always. And also, I will be sending out my second ever newsletter tomorrow. So if you haven't signed up for the newsletter and joined the Row family yet, and you would like to start your week off with some calming vibes, use a link in my description box to sign up for that. And it's completely free and simple, and you can unsubscribe whenever you want. All right, take care.